For weeks, drivers have been working hard across 4 different continents to get to here, to be able to get into a spot to battle for a championship, to be able to get into a spot to be able to prove they're the best in terms of CrowdStrike racing. Tonight, the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League closes out its 5-round season as we get ready for a rainy race from Brands Hatch. Good evening, everyone. I'm Justin Prince alongside the booth for today's action. It's Kevin Bolham as we get set for what's expected to be a thrilling finale. 2 very tight championships coming into today. The Pro Championship, just a 1-point difference, mind you. A lot to be said as these drivers get ready to race in heavy rain to close out the season, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, talk about the most difficult way to close out a season, rain. It's going to be really messy, and I think whoever can keep the cleanest race today has the best chance of coming out on top. That's going to be for sure.
And especially when it comes to how tight things have been among some of the best in the championship. We've had different winners each week, but consistency has become the name of the game for 2 drivers, Puckett and Gulzer. The 1-point difference going to be so critical. And with the challenge today of having to deal with the rain conditions, that's going to be a big spanner of the works, so to speak, in terms of what these championship drivers are going to have to do when being consistent can be so difficult in the rain, as you could say.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, consistency over a season. Well, today in the rain, it's going to be consistency for just a race. Every single lap is going to be a battle to keep it on track and to stay out of trouble. And whoever can do that the most consistently is going to have the best chance of coming out with a great result today.
That being said, as talked about, we are at Brands Hatch for today's action as the drivers are currently in the midst of getting ready for a busy qualifying session. Track position expected to be critical. And so when it comes to a circuit like this today, what are kind of those expectations, knowing first the conditions, but as the drivers get ready for the qualifying itself, the expectations of how they're going to handle this session as they hit the racetrack?
Well, I mean, Brands Hatch is a track that's really hard to pass on, so track position is always important, but here I think especially true. And then given the track, the conditions, the rain, it's going to be even more important for track position because the farther you are up front, you're going to have better vision. You're going to have the kind of a greater chance of staying out of trouble. So I think this track, these conditions, qualifying is probably the most important session that these guys have had all season because it's really going to set the stage and give them a really their best chance of doing well. So it's not a requirement to qualify well, but it's just going to be, the odds are going to be in your favor if you can qualify closer to the top.
Take a look at Ian Burleson, by the way, on the racetrack as everyone circulates around just the 10 minutes to be able to get the job done, already down within the first minute. You're talking maybe 3-4 laps, maybe 5 around the circuit. And you have a lot of racing experience when it comes to the rear world, of course. Called the championships in TC America. Also, you throw in the top 3 run in GT America last season. What's kind of that experience like racing in a rainy condition like this when it's a torrential downpour? You have a lot of potential puddles around the track, but also you have a lot of elevation changes that can make it pretty slick on the in the brakes.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is, especially in qualifying, you want to really maximize your speed in every turn, every brake zone, everywhere on the track, but you have to make sure not to ask for too much. So you only have a limited number of laps here, probably 3, maybe 4 laps if you're lucky. So you've really got to start a little bit conservative and get a number on the board, and then once you do that, you can start to push the envelope a little bit at a time, but be really methodical at it because it's so much easier to overstep the grip on rain, and that's true in the real world. It's even more true in the virtual world because it's so much harder to feel those grip levels when you're in the sim. So it's a huge challenge for these guys today.
So as they continue to circulate around the circuit amidst the qualifying, early morning conditions, to touch upon the drivers to watch for the championship battles. The 7 and 14 are the 2 you need to keep an eye on for the Pro Championship. Puckett, so far, he hasn't finished anywhere lower than the top 5, Kevin. However, for Hamza Gulzar, he won the opener finished second in the second race of the season, but the third round of the campaign, that's where things started to break away. That was Bathurst. That was a 10th place run. That's the big difference marker. Outside of that, it's no bit worse than Folk for Goldstar. It's kind of wild how tight this championship has been, but it to emphasize the amount of pressure that's being put into these two drivers for the championship for the pro side.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to a championship, you always look back and you can see these individual moments where you could have had a couple more points here, a couple more points there, but in the end, it doesn't matter. You have a certain number of races the whole season, and you just got to maximize it. So wherever you are today coming in with points, you just have to have the best result today. Don't worry about your competitors, just do the best you can, and that's how you're going to maximize your points for the whole season, and then hopefully you're the one with the most when it comes to the end of the checkers out.
Now, looking on board, this is your pole sitter and race winner last time out in one of the Nissans. This is Luke Zema. Last time out, put up a dominating performance, led just about the entire way, basically. Not bad for a debut to begin, and already up by half a second in this rainy session.
Right, and I mean, that's a good sign, because the faster you go in the beginning of the session, the better idea of how much grip and what you can get away with. So he's set up himself up for success. You can see he's going a little bit faster already for this lap, and really I think the rain qualifying it's really tricky, because you never really know what your time's going to be until time runs out, because it's such a dynamic session. Everybody's going to get faster all the way to the end of it. So I think you're going to see everybody running. The more laps they do, you're going to see a lot of green as they get faster and faster.
More purples, by the way, already starting to clamber around the racetrack. Munsell's picking up the pace include Clark, Jack Collins, take a look at currently. Munsell's in the top 10. One of the Mercedes needed to get a move on in terms of the pylon, though. Currently 2.6 seconds back as they come around the final section of the Clark curve. That leads to the obvious question with the conditions today. Where are the best places to try and really attack? Are they similar to what you would expect in the dry, or do you change that approach knowing how some of those opportunities might be away with less grip?
Yeah, I mean, as far as how you drive, you have to change the way you drive in the rain a little bit, because it's even harder to combine the loads. It's really hard to accelerate and turn at the same time, or even brake and turn at the same time. So you have to kind of maximize one or the other and kind of separate those with some priority. So you end up squaring off the corners a little bit, both on the entry and the exit, so that you do one or the other, and that's one way to really maximize your kind of what you can get away with in the lap time. And I think that becomes really difficult once you get to the race time, because now you're trying to also play that chess game of where you position the car, and sometimes it's hard to do that squaring off, and that opens up the opportunity for mistakes and things like that. So it's a big kind of moving game, and depending on if the weather's changing at all, if this rain starts to lighten up or maybe even gets heavier, then there's a lot of variables that you have to be considering while you're really pushing the limits behind the wheel at the same time.
Already down to the final 3.5 minutes or so. Ian Burleson, just seen him flash up. There's Collins once again. Now, all this grouping together would touch upon the AM Championship as well, because Simon Peterson coming in with 76 points, has that points lead after the race win in Australia. So we take a look at the Aussie gain a spot to 7th. Alexandro Turtan needs to get points today. We kept an eye on him earlier. He's a 2-time AM winner already on the season. However, the 17th in that same race at Bathurst, the major difference mark. You touched upon how you can look at certain points of the season, but the consistency's been there for Peterson and AM. The winning speed's been there from Turtan.
Yeah, I think if I had to choose between one or the other, I would choose the speed, but I think consistency is something that it's hard to get, and I think when you look at Bathurst by itself, it's such a difficult track. It makes sense why that might be someone's worst race of the season, but I think when you take Brands Hatch here in the rain, well, that's another variable that's going to make it this probably one of the next hardest tracks from this season so far. So I think consistency might be the thing that's going to really win this championship, but it could go either way, so who knows.
As they continue turn. Laps drivers like Edwards amongst the mid-pack in terms of those in AM. Those in AM you'll see in red. White are the drivers in the Pro classification. Take a look at Vlad Doha amongst those, looking solid though in the Pro class. One of the BMWs, in fact, the highest BMW, up to 7th. So you only have about a lap or so left for these drivers to try and improve here. There's a lot of parity today in the manufacturing. Just about every single manufacturer on the service is represented in the top 10.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's always a huge contention point in the real world. And fortunately, in the virtual world, I think sometimes it's a little bit easier to get those cars closer. But I think rain is a huge equalizer, and you're really going to see some cars might be easier to drive in the kind of low grip conditions than others, based on how the traction control and the ABS and how the drivers are adjusting those. So there's a lot to kind of adjust and deal with to try to maximize your performance when you have these changing conditions like this.
Of course, Santa Corsa Competiciones had rain for a while. Lots of conversation about that in terms of our platforms getting rain recently. And a lot of drivers, in terms of that, we're not talking about just street driving in terms of racing, take that bit for granted on how tricky it is to race in a monsoon and then think, why is there a red flag for the rain? It can be difficult to drive. We already have a couple cautions for drivers going off the racetrack in certain sectors.
Yeah, I think in contrast to the dry, when you start to slide the car in the wet, it's much harder to kind of regain control of the car. So I think it's so much high. You have to put a higher priority on not sliding the car to start with. But if you make a really small mistake in the rain that might not have been a big deal in the dry, well, in the rain it can be a really big slide that's hard to catch, and once you go off, you go way off. And those are the kind of things you really have to prioritize your risk versus reward once you're on track, when you have these really slippery conditions. And as I mentioned earlier, when you're in the sim, it's really hard to feel exactly how much grip the track has, and it's really hard to see those puddles. And as the track changes, as the rain picks up and lets off, then some of those places are going to grip up or maybe be worse. So whoever's adapting to that the best is also going to have some advantage.
So checker flag waving on the racetrack for the qualifying session. Zama currently at the top of the board, 7/10 up. See where some of the final drivers on track put themselves. This is Act 10, 204, able to get themselves in the top 10 within 2 seconds of the pole time, but still not to said pole time. And Lizama's really setting the pace and the tone for this finale after the win last time. Not going to be easy to beat him in terms of that, but of course your championship competitors, at the very least, Pocket and Gulzar, are towards the front. Currently 4th and 6th as the qualifying comes to a close. So as the last of these drivers come around and finish things up, the separation between the top to the bottom of the pylon, 3.6 seconds. That's what's just looking towards on the timing pylons. What are your keys to victory for this race today?
Well, I think we said it earlier. It's all about consistency. The track is low grip right now. You're going to have a really hard time to be able to fight your way back if you have a spin. If you go off the track, if you have any kind of issues, it's going to be a really steep hill to reclimb. So I think even if you have to sacrifice a little bit of your speed to make sure you don't make any mistakes, that's going to be a key to this race.
So as a result here too, we talked a lot about some of the favorites for the championship. We've seen, again, a master classic qualifying for a second straight race for Lizama. Who do you feel might get that advantage in a race like today? Which characteristics were the ones this race favors by the checker flag over the course of 40 minutes?
Well, I mean, I think that qualifying lap was pretty impressive, especially when you have a gap like that. And in an ideal world, when you're a driver and you set that kind of lap time, your dream is that you just run away from the field and you just have a nice, smooth, easy race. But there's so many things that can happen, especially as the field spreads out. And this is a short track, so if you have a 3-second gap between the fastest and slowest car, there's a chance, even without issues, that you're going to be lapping traffic. So I think patience is going to be something that is really important, as anyone, whether they're the fastest car on track or someone in the mid pack or all the way at the back. But that patience is going to be really important, again, to lend into that consistency that's going to give you the chance to kind of be at the top at the end of the race.
Take a look as the drivers continue to populate on the grid. They have about 2 minutes before the cars themselves get to racing on the circuit. So as they get themselves prepared, remember, this is the season finale when it comes to these drivers here for this championship. A lot on the line and a lot at stake when it comes to CrowdStrike Racing. The winner gets 25 points, 23 for second in class, 21 for third, 19 for fourth, 17 for the top 5, and it continues to work 2 points on down until you reach no points if you're outside the top 15. So, essentially, if you're amongst the championship favorites, it's quite simple. With it being a 1-point difference, it comes down to just finish ahead of the other. Give credit, though, to that 77 for the nice monster truck, but outside of that, it looks like everybody else is set to go.
Yeah, that's right. I think right now, if you're in this race, you're making sure you have enough fuel, you're making sure your tire pressures are perfect, you're kind of doing everything you can, because once the green flag comes out, there's no pit stops. You're running all the way to the end, so you got to have it perfect.
Yeah, a few of these drivers, for those wondering, are still making some tire adjustments and car adjustments before the cars get rolling off the grid, hence why they're picking up. Now, looking above at Brands Hatch, let's talk about the circuit. Around since 1950, 9 corners, 3.9 kilometers, 2.4 miles. Where are the areas on this track today you're circling the most for the intensity to pick up?
Well, I think one of the most challenging turns here is turn 1. It's a kind of downhill, just off camber, really slippery turn even in the dry. So I think we're going to see maybe some cars drop some wheels on the outside there. And then that's going to set you up for passing opportunities directly in turn 2. So that's going to be really important to get turn 1 right, to either set yourself up for a pass or maybe to protect from being passed as the race starts. And that's going to continue for the entire race.
So the command being given for the cars to fire and get the rolling grid started before the green flag for the final time this season. Again, championship favorites getting all set to see what happens here. Again, Puckett starting 4th in terms of the pro classification, 6th spot for Golzar. Now, for those wanting to keep an eye on the AM Championship, cars 18 and 88 are the 2 to keep an eye on for that respective championship fight. See how they play out. For reference, the 8 of Turtan is in 22nd overall, 13th overall for Peterson. A big cushion of 15 cars to start for the AM leader.
Yeah, and that's a big advantage, because that changes. If you're way out front like that, you can be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more patient, and you don't have to be as aggressive to maintain or get more positions. You have that cushion. So I think we might see that 88 car have to take a little bit more risk to try to get some positions, because he needs to finish ahead of the 18 to have a chance in that championship.
Drivers continuing to make sure their tires are warmed up. The rain is expected to stay heavy downpour per the InSim forecast. Track temperature about 22 degrees Celsius, 21 the air temp. Fields ready as they make their way towards the final sectors and get themselves going. Only one more grouping of corners to go. And Kevin, again, glad to have you with us for the finale here. Of course, racer with CrowdStrike Racing. This finale should be a fun one.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I'm really, it's exciting to see this rain race. It's a huge challenge, and I'm excited to see all these racers really give their best today. So thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, and something's wrong with the leader. Lizama has just stopped in the racetrack, so his Nissan has just stopped Bill Clark, and the Porsche instead is now currently the control car. So we'll see if Lizama can even get his spots back. There's not going to be a lot of time as they get ready to get to the start. They're already a quarter away from the green.
Yeah, that's going to change the outlook for this race quite a bit, depending on what that problem is and if he can recover. But I think if he can get it back going,
Here he goes.
Here we go.
Wow, that's a bit of an interest and an entry as we get set to go. Lizama with a stop on the track. We're glad to have you with us. It's the season finale for the drivers today for the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. Lizama starts off to the left of your screen. Clark on the right side. Green lights are out. We're underway for Brands Hatch. Lizama defends hard. Clark already trying to wrap the outside as they make their way through Paddock Hill Bend. Off to Hillwoods Hill as they look to battle for the first time to the heartbreaking zone to Druids. Already drivers like Puckett hold on to the top four, but drivers like Clark able to hold on to second. As mentioned, Lizama able to get himself back to the front within 5 seconds of the start zone. That's an interesting way to start as they make their way through Sector 2. Your thoughts so far, Kevin, as already Lizama running as drivers like Greg Snyder having problems at the back. Kevin. They have lost Kevin there as Puckett, we go up towards him in terms of the battle for third. Burleson trying to hold on defensively in the midst of this heavy rain. Talked about consistency when it comes to Puckett's season so far. Right now in the driver's seat for the championship, at least in the first few seconds of this one. So as these drivers sort themselves out, you know how wild the start was, essentially, for this run. Clark, right now, all running your 2 seconds back. You have Burleson and Puckett amongst that respective pack currently. You also throw into the mix in terms of the drafting train starting to form up. You have Pfeiffer, you have Golzar, you throw Zachary coming into the grouping as well. They've already picked up a 5-second buffer over the rest of the field as well.
Yeah, that's right, and I think as you see the cars kind of get into line, everybody's going to get a little bit into a groove, and then you're just waiting to some extent for the car in front of you to maybe make a mistake and make it easy on you. But for the most part, everybody's going to settle into the kind of pace that they can run and guarantee.
Now watching from Golzar's viewpoint right now, a lot of bubbling and shaking from Pfeiffer. Golzar needs to make passes eventually here. Seems to be trying to keep enough distance for that braking zone, but he is trying to change up the lines to get a lot of visibility here, especially with that rain spray.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is a great view to see how the vision is really obstructed with the water and how placement of your car, you can actually give yourself a little bit clearer view if you pop out left or right. And the last thing you want to do is see the car in front of you slow down before you're expecting, because it's almost unrecoverable.
You can see his viewpoint on the right side of your screen with the direct drive wheel, trying to keep laser focused with the open wheel frame today. By the way, you may have noticed there is a change in terms of the top. Clark with all the shuffling has passed Lizama, so something has happened to the 615 to drop back into that queue of cars. So we'll see how this now changes things with the lead going from 2 seconds up, Kevin, to, well, everybody's in the main group.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that goes back to the key to the race of consistency. So, I mean, it doesn't matter the speed sometimes. If you make even a small mistake, it can set you back in the pack, and then all of that advantage is gone. So I'd like to see what happened if we could, but in the meantime, we're going to see Lizama try to recover and see if he can get those positions back.
For reference, last time, 4 seconds off the pace. Usually that's a sign of he made a mistake somewhere. And with these conditions, it's not a surprise that you might see a lot of mistakes. He nearly spun it out on the warm-up lap, mind you, trying to get it fired up, we see.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's the fact that rain brings is it's so much easier to make a mistake. And as we see him go for a pass here, and oh, that's very tight, but they make it work.
Right to the fender, Burleson holding on to the left side of the track up the Brabham straight. Already, Puckett trying to fall behind for a moment. And Zama makes contact. Burleson forced to lift hard. Here comes Puckett looking to take a spot. Move Puckett to third as he goes to the right side of the racetrack on screen for Druids. Now contact as Puckett, the leader, gets turned around. The championship points leader with a big save.
Wow, and that's I think we're going to see a lot of that as these small little advantageous moments pop up. You're going to see some contact like that as we go to a replay.
This is what happened for the cost for the leader. That's going to do it.
Yep, just a little mistake, just a little wide, drop the wheels off in the grass, and then no more grip.
Gozar still hasn't gained any spots in all this wildness for third breaking out. Burleson, Pfeiffer, side by side as Puckett now in the 5th position. The 46 paint scheme works its way high side. This continues to be a hard fight. Gozar needs to figure out a way to get a chance to take advantage of all this, you could basically say, as there goes the move. Pfeiffer on the pass.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's so difficult. You have to trust the drivers around you a lot because it's so easy to slide the cars around. As we see a little contact there, it's just give and take all the way around the track.
Here comes an important pass to the right side. The send, there's Gozar. Gozar and the Jaguar moves himself in the championship lead. What a fight going on already, just 7 minutes in, just about. We talked about the need for drivers in the championship fight like this to pick up the pace in the battle. We're seeing Gozar say, I'm going to pick up the pieces now.
Yeah, that's right, and I think he really was patient there and took advantage of the cars in front of him dicing back and forth a little bit, and he was able to get through there really cleanly. And I think that's what it's really important to do, especially in these conditions, is you're going to see some people have an advantage here or there, maybe some cars battle in a turn, and if you can sit back and be patient and take advantage of that, then you can do your job really easy if you do it that way.
So now this is also a true test here, you can say, for Gozar. As mentioned with the point structure would be in the advantage, yes, but can he break away a bit? There is a little bit of a buffer to the next cars on the racetrack already. Last time through a scoring lead, it was 1.4 seconds. That gap already going down a bit. In fact, Puckett saying if it's not going to go down in terms of in front of the bumper, I'm going to make it go down in terms of the pressure on the race leader for Gozar, for the points lead rather.
Yeah, that's right, and sometimes that pressure is really important because you can force somebody to make a mistake. So I think that's a good strategy, especially in these conditions, because it's like we've said so many times that it's so easy to make just a tiny mistake that has big consequences in a race like this.
So watching on board from the 5, that time by the gap down to just 2/10, a 1:30 flat, 10 quicker than Gozar. Clark, mind you, still has the fastest lap because he just set the purple lap, a 1:29.6 for those curious in the race lead. Still keeping an eye, though, for Graham Hillbent. Puckett, I know there's still 40 minutes in terms of the race, and 31 minutes on the clock this time by. But when does it become the stake of, okay, is there going to be enough chances for me to make a move? Do I take the chance now or wait until the final 5 minutes?
I think in a race like this, you need to take every chance that you're offered. It's not like you can sit and just follow somebody around for 35 minutes of this 40-minute race and then just do your move in the last 2 or 3 laps. I think this race is going to be so dynamic with the rain that if there's a chance to pass somebody, you need to pass them right now. So especially in the real world, that's true, because if a yellow comes out, then the race could be over. So I don't think we're going to see any yellows here today, but it's no less important to try to make your move when it presents itself.
Once again, making their way through Clark Curve. They have closed up to Burleson a bit. Same can be said in terms of the M-Class battling now with some of the pro cars. Currently, it's Tyler Reed, one of the Operation Motorsport drivers, who is currently battling with Peterson. Right now, that difference, about half a second last time, it's shrinking already. Now, Peterson's in the driver's seat for the class side. Puckett tries to drive around the outside for the pro lead for points.
Wow, it's a difficult move to make there, but you have to try it every now and then. But I think kind of falling back in line was a good choice.
Yeah, the aggression definitely picking up. Was just about to say with what we're seeing from the M side, Peterson and Reed are keeping it close. Peterson is right now where he needs to be, and that is Puckett getting moved along. That's by Pfeiffer. That's a little bit naughty to move the point leader coming in towards the side of the racetrack. Yeah,
I mean, you always like to try to make your pass without any contact, and it was a little bit hard to see kind of what was going on before that. Maybe there was some defending going on entering that corner. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to do when you're in the rain. You're trying to maybe pass someone, but if there's someone trying to pass you behind, then it opens yourself up to exactly what we just saw, and maybe you lose a position because you were trying to be aggressive.
Still keeping an eye with Puckett. Gulsar now essentially leads the group. Now keep in mind for Puckett, the reason part with the Trace 3 is amongst those who works in the racing realm, a part of actually in the Motor City, essentially the IT side for that company he has on the car. Hence why the representation. He looks to try and get around Pfeiffer in turn. But you're talking about somebody that's got motorsports experience. You also bring that to the virtual side, be able to use that as an outlet and be able to figure out not just the solutions for your racing team or your sponsor of a race team, but also try and figure out what they're feeling in the car.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that experience can come in many different forms. You have experience of kind of race strategy of how to set up a pass or kind of things like that. But you also have the experience of kind of if the car slides, how are you going to catch it? How, like the actual driving experience. So there's a lot of carryover that works from the real world over into virtual racing for sure.
Keeping look at Pfeiffer. And so far, when it comes to Luke, he's been having a fierce fight with almost every car that's been nearby the 10 machine today. Anytime Pfeiffer's trying to make a pass, immediately he's been put right back on the defensive. In fact, he's having a hard time, if anything, you can argue, closing the battle. Here's the look again from Puckett for good measure.
Yeah, I mean, that's the story of some races where maybe you have enough speed to get ahead of somebody, but you don't have enough speed to get away from them. So you end up just kind of dicing back and forth for the whole race. So I think that's what we're seeing a little bit today.
So right now, already past a quarter way through this season finale for the CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League here today. Keep an eye in the back wing for Pfeiffer. And one question I do have to ask, because in terms of the research for today, it does mention you also have mechanic experience in terms of building cars and working as an engineer. What goes down to building a setup that can be so different for trying to get the car ready for rain compared to, say, if it was like bone dry on the circuit?
Well, I mean, you have to change the car, and I guarantee even here in the virtual race today, everybody in here has a special setup that they're running to match these conditions. And some of the things that you would change is in the dry, you really want a stiff car, because that stiff car kind of just makes the most grip. It changes directions fast. It gives the driver a lot of good feedback. But when it's really stiff like that in the rain, you can overload the tire, and essentially that same thing that gives you grip in the dry takes away the grip in the wet. So you have to make the car softer. You do that with springs, you do that with the sway bars, you do that with the dampers, and you have to change your tire pressures and things like that, all of which kind of combine to make the car perform better or worse. And you have to experiment a little over time to understand kind of how much of which of those things you need to change, and every one of these manufacturers is going to be slightly different. So it's a huge challenge, and when you get it right, you know it, and when you get it wrong, you know it. So it's a fun thing to experiment with when you get it right, and it's agonizing when you haven't quite found exactly the right setup.
And once again, looking at now, this is the face camera when it comes to Puckett. See laser focused first of all. You see the racing accolades in the backdrop. But right now, you talked about you need to take as many chances as you can right now for the championship fight and also with the distance of the race. Puckett right now has already lost himself a few seconds. If he doesn't find the ground, he's not winning the championship.
Yeah, that's right. And to some extent, the best thing to do when you're the driver is to not think about it like that. You have to be thinking about just one corner at a time and make sure that you're maximizing.
Here we go.
As we go for a pass here.
That's for the lead. Apologies for breaking in, but Lizama's saying it's time to break back into the lead after the troubles earlier.
Yeah, that was a really good pass going around the outside there. Pretty impressive to hold that off, and I think that makes sense to me, seeing the pace that he had in qualifying, and I think he's maybe become a little bit more patient after he made the little mistake there in the first couple of laps, and we'll see if he can extend this just a little bit now.
And some trouble towards the back. That's turn 10, and that is not good. That is your second in amp points coming in, dropping all the way back to 17th on racetrack now. He was 14th to start the lap. And already, Burleson starting to get bumpers traded with because the gap is starting to grow for third. Pfeiffer saying, it's time to battle, ring-a-ding-ding.
Yeah, I think it's been the story of the race. We've been seeing this exact same thing where the cars just kind of, they start to spread out and then they come back together, and then it's a really tight battle with just these really light touches. So it's been a tough race so far, but it's good to see for the most part it's been pretty clean.
Yeah, no major incidents when keeping an eye on the track map. If anything, that last incident involving second in GT3 amp points coming in, it's really only been your major off track of the race outside of maybe Lizama. It's been interesting how it's played out in terms of that dynamic.
Yeah, that's right, and really that goes out to everybody here racing today. Is doing a great job of adapting to these conditions and not falling susceptible to that kind of red mist that's easy to happen when you see your competition just right in front of you. So huge kudos to all the drivers out here today.
Take a look at Burleson. Well, that's a lot of wheel movement. Yeah,
that's a lot more than you want to see, but yeah, he stayed in control, so great job.
Yeah, and of course, we talked a bit about the platforms in terms of the experience levels, in terms of some that are on different platforms. Learning what rain is. You talk about ACC, you have a lot of experience at this point for several years now. Drivers like Lizama runs an Odyssey Racing League, looking very solid here. Clark has been solid in getting pass backs, though, since the catch back up from the 615.
Yeah, that's right, and it really makes me wonder if this is a little bit of some of the advantages between these two manufacturers. You have the Porsche with the engine kind of hanging over the rear wheels, and that gives Clark just a little bit more kind of drive out of the turns, a little bit more grip in the rear, so maybe he's using that to his advantage. And of course the Nissan with a front engine rear wheel drive, it's a little bit lighter on the rear, so maybe it's a little bit harder for him to get power down, and that might be the difference, but these two are so evenly matched so far today.
Clark, before last race, was amongst those in the championship conversation at Suzuka. It was a 0-point round for the Pink Pig. Today, living up to the speed showcase parts of the season, he's finished before in most rounds, no lower than 6th. Lizama putting him through his paces near the halfway mark.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty impressive, and I think if he can keep this pace up, then I think he has no worries about finishing inside the top 6, and I think his mind is completely focused on trying to win this race right now, and it looks like he's completely capable.
Take a look from Zema. So we've seen, it's pretty clear he can catch, he can pass, but can he stay on the track, let alone hold the defensive maneuvers. That seems to be the part that seems to be a struggle for Lizamba to try and go back-to-back.
Yeah, it's a real big question. Like if maybe his car just there's something a little bit different now. So I'm not sure exactly what's making it so difficult, but it's great to see these two battling like this. They're not really moving very far away from each other, no matter which one's ahead.
Already different lines in terms of the sight lines. Zama trying to go for the diamond line, coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. Still stays about a car length or so behind. Cross flags coming around already. 20 minutes to go this time around in this early morning in-sim race. Top two up by 6-7 seconds for Gulzar. Gulzar is in championship position with Puckett back in 6th. Just heard over the comms. Halfway in the race, as speaking of Puckett, he makes contact as that's Burleson into the grass.
Oh wow, and that's not what you want to see. We didn't see the beginning of that, but yeah, these two coming together a little bit, and definitely Burleson taking the grunt of that one.
Yeah, that's going to cost him a lot of time. No visible damage at least. Back to the battle for the race lead. These two have been electric in terms of their pace. Here's a look at what caused the spin just a moment ago.
Just a little bit of a racing incident, I think there. It's kind of sticking your nose in right at the exit. Maybe picked up a little bit of understeer. Maybe lost the rear a little bit on the curb. So a lot of possibilities there, but just unlucky for sure.
Lap traffic for the leaders, nearly hitting the wall. That is Nader, who we've seen off the track in the first laps of the race. Zama trying to use that as an opportunity. Now, here's the look again.
Yeah, another contact there where looks like there's an opportunity there, and then as you try to pick up the gas, you kind of lose the front a little bit. So those are pretty difficult sometimes to judge when you're behind the wheel.
It is one of the areas too, mark as potential danger zone, because depending on what platform you are, the runoff area coming out of Graham Hill Bend can be different, but it still remains the same. If you track up and wash up out of the corner exit, that's what we usually have seen happen, a spin.
Yeah, that's right, and especially when it's wet like this, it doesn't take much of a contact to kind of send a car spinning. So you have to be really careful about that, because you don't want to be the one making the contact, but you most definitely don't want to be the car spinning either.
Still keep an eye on your top two on circuit. So with Lizamba, it seems he's gone into the let's keep it calm and patient move. There is one thing to note: if they keep this the way they're going, there is one car faster than them each lap, the past few in fact. Gulzar is slowly chipping away at them. Puckett, he's having a hard time being able to chip away past Burleson. He's already behind Burleson again. It looks like he let him have the time back. Now that gap is about 9 seconds to Pfeiffer.
Yeah, and that's going to be that's a lot of time to try to gain in the next 17 minutes. That's he almost needs to gain more than a second a lap from now to the end of the race. So he's got a pretty steep hill to climb to have a chance at this championship.
Puckett, yet again ascend, yet again a fender dragged. This time Puckett may have just completed the pass for at least the next bit. Needed that done cleanly a while ago. But drivers like Collins, we've seen him slide a bit earlier. Right now, 15th in one of the Mercedes AMGs in the field. Trying to battle with second, check that third in AM, Williamson in front.
And you're seeing kind of some different lines go through there as we go back to the leaders here.
Yeah, let's take a look at Bill Clark. You can see him almost leaning into these turns, knowing what's at stake here in this pink machine. I give credit to the paint scheme. You gotta love the look of the pink pig. It is a real paint scheme, I believe. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a historical scheme, so it's really cool to see it kind of represented on these modern race cars, but dates all the way back to the late 60s, if I remember right, on the Porsches. So pretty cool livery for sure, and you can see all the concentration in his eyes right now. It takes a lot when you're in the rain to really do that, and you can see what he's putting in to try to get the most out of the car right now.
Yeah, and right now I see him glancing over towards the shoulder, especially since there's traffic ahead, keeping an eye on the intervals, keeping an eye on the times. They're starting to have the blue flags pop up for the cars ahead. That's the bright side here. Still going to be important. Make sure they get past any potential traffic towards the back of the field cleanly from here on out to avoid any hang-ups. By the way, the reason for the yellow in the sector, the lap car, oh wait, pardon me, the not lap car, the 15th place car, Collins, went off the track. And there's the lap car. He also stopped in the same area, and he's the wrong way.
It's always scary to see the cars rejoin, but it looks like he got back on safely.
Yeah, that was 27th, Alex. So, as looking toward one of the teammates to Lezama, is Julius Tan, one of those racing in the M class. That was Smith making the pass there. So far, so solid for the drivers from that racing league. They're amongst those actually just in terms of looking towards the league schedule, trying to get ready for tracks like Laguna Seca for their respective league, their fun leagues, for 60 minutes of racing. It's kind of interesting community that's built up, I have to say, though, on ACC as a whole, though, in terms of the flavor compared to some of the other platforms. It's a lot more, let's have a fun race, that I've noticed.
Yeah, I think ACC's got a lot of great communities, and there's a lot of good racing. I mean, just like the race we're watching today, there's a lot of really close racing, a lot of competitive racing, and a lot of fun racing, and I think everybody has a flavor that they can kind of tune into, subscribe to, and participate in, and I think that's great.
And drivers like Pfeiffer, by the way, 12.5 seconds back now of Gulzar. You can pretty much say that 14 has started to really find a lot of tempo, not so much Forfon back on circuit. Yeah, Puckett, that's lost ground to him by near 2 seconds. For Pfeiffer, seems in line for at least a top run, and there's the spin instead.
Yeah, I think that's such an easy thing to do in turn one there. It's such a challenging turn.
That was a replay, by the way. I will say, Pfeiffer didn't lose a spot from that spin. That's how big his deficit is, and there's another spin on screen. Not sure which car that is as the 114 zips on by. That's the 42, Ben Armstrong. He goes around another spin. This is Vlad Doha. We've seen him do well in qualifying. Now it's come apart for another BMW.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the conditions are changing a little bit. Is the track getting a little bit more slippery? It looks like the lap times aren't changing very much, but we are seeing a lot more mistakes. So something seems to be a little bit different on track right now.
Well, I can tell you based on the weather forecast, most of it is heavy rain. However, within the next 5 minutes, Kevin, there's a plus sign next to the rain expected. So I think it's pretty safe to say it's getting harder out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that's causing some of these extra spins, and that's one thing that you really have to contend with that doesn't exist as much in a dry race, is how much the track can change from one lap to the next. So you constantly have to be scanning the track with your eyes and feeling any kind of differences if the rain level changes, if the rain picks up at all, how much hitting your windshield, how much spray is coming off the cars in front of you. All those are clues to tell you that you might need to adjust your braking points and your corner speeds to not make a mistake.
Keeping an eye on the race lead, 12 minutes to go on the season. Now it's heavy traffic to deal with. At least 3-4 cars down the straightaway. Blue flags already popping up for those involved in some troubles. I don't think some of them have seen it yet. Clark gets a little bit of a checkup, forced to reset as he goes to the right side. And this traffic may very well play a factor. That was contact. Lezama hit from behind. Clark able to hold on to it from said punt, and that gained him time.
Yeah, that's such a dangerous thing when you come up on the lap traffic like that, and you have to judge whether they see you and how much room they're going to leave you, and when you have your competitor right behind you, it's a tough thing to balance. And then especially when you're chasing, you're trying to take advantage of the leader getting held up whatsoever, and I think that's what led to the contact there.
So more traffic ahead. Clark able to get around this time cleanly. Lizama seems to be amongst those saying, I've got to go. Nearly shoved the traffic that time. Bill Clark's reached them a bit more in an optimistic position than so far compared to Lizama. And that's helping despite the fact they had a bump. In fact, the lap car just crashed themselves out of the way.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that makes this racing so interesting. Once you get the lap traffic, if you get any kind of gap between yourself and whoever you're racing, you can use that to your advantage. Sometimes if you're the leader, you get a car between you two, then that's a safety factor. And if you're the car chasing, you can try to use a car holding up the leader. So you're going to see both try to take advantage of those situations. And as we see Lizama go off the track there, but he kept it together.
Yeah, picked up a little bit of gravel on those tires, but able to hold on firmly. We also have an air battle for the 9th position on racetrack. This is Martin Lassen. Right now, his racing blue machine that looks more neon than blue, looking to try and find a way around Carp. It's the battle of the Ferraris. They've been grouped together this whole race.
Yeah, it's fun to it's like you're a magnet sometimes when you're on track. You just can't get away from other cars if you're the car in the front there, and you can't find the speed to get ahead of the car in front of you sometimes. So it's cool to see the cars running together like that.
And there's a look at Tyler Reed, your AM leader, having some troubles. With under 9 minutes to go, he had a 5-second cushion. That will shrink a bit. All while Lassen looking her way around Carp. Carp still playing good defensive. Not anymore, as Carp had to get off the gas on the slide. Lucian Carp loses the spot as we look at the battle for 15th, now 14th.
You're seeing these cars tiptoe around turn 1 here, trying not to go too wide because it's so slippery out there. And then, man, it's a tough battle between all these cars. They have a little bit advantages here and there. Some cars get off the corner a little bit better, and you have the drive line differences, where the engines are, where the weight is. All those things kind of add up to different driving characteristics that everybody has to take advantage of here.
Yeah, Barbara Smith this time trying to let others like Collins go. And this almost leads into something we haven't seen as much of today with the conditions. A lot of AM versus Pro battles. Keep in mind, the point structures are different for those respective classes here. Like, it's not a difference of overall points coming into a factor. If that's why we're seeing a lot of the AM drivers say, if you're faster, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's really the smart thing to do. If there's no real advantage to battling with another car, well, there's a lot of risk associated with it. So sometimes it's better to just separate yourself and let them go. And if there's nothing to lose from it, because you don't want to get caught up in a slide like that.
That was one of the Odyssey cars just having a slide. That is Harknet. That's the AM entry for that team around into the barriers. So Harknet with a bit of damage to the bonnet, forced to come out of the grass as several of the leaders try and zip by.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to do, and if you go just a little bit wide, the grass is wet, and it's easy to spin the car out like that.
Keeping an eye on some of the others we haven't talked too much about. This is the teammate to Puckett. This is Jason Ashton, right now in a BMW, and see him trying to stay laser focused. Has the drink on hand. There's a lot of rain to be able to get your hand wet on if you stick your hand out of this virtual race car, I will say.
Yeah, that's right. I'd be a little concerned if his hand got wet while he's driving in the sim, but yeah, it's good he has the bottle there to stay hydrated.
Yeah, just trying to stay laser focused here on the edge of the racetrack. Right now, Stockton has 14 seconds to get to Burleson, but does have a bit of a buffer to Carp. Solid driving, we'll say, for the 204. Other battles going on in the final 6 minutes of the season include drivers like Mike Jensen. This grouping is for 6th in the M class. That's Small right behind. And right now, Ryan Small seems to be on the prowl, despite having some slow-ups recently when it comes to Jensen and co. The gap last time by was massively shrink because of issues like Hartnett, of course, but 138 back here. Here's a look at some of the onboards. And it looks like the windscreen is broken on Hartnett hearing, so that's not going to be good. So I'll ask you this, Kevin. If the windscreen breaks, you can see Hartnett's view of it based on the facial expressions. How hard is it if you break your windscreen in a rainstorm?
Well, I've fortunately never done that myself, but I think what the real pain of it comes from is if you've had a big enough shunt to break the windshield, then you probably have other damage on the car, and the other damage is probably going to be the stuff that's slowing you down. So whether it's suspension or aero or all the possibilities, that's what's really going to kind of make you a little bit wish that hadn't happened.
Well, that's more troubles, by the way, for Doha. That's his second off track. In fact, there's debris a bit on the racetrack, just seen there. I think he's littered some parts of the car down. In fact, that looks severe damage for Doha to end the race.
Yeah, it looks like maybe he's just letting some of these cars go before he continues on. But yeah, not a good situation here as we see more cars off.
Yeah, that's chaotic racing. And that's along with more troubles. The 182 not having a fun time in the rain. That's Greg Snetter, who's gone off 3 times. Take a look at one of the ORL machines. Julius Dent trying to battle it out a little bit here for 20th.
Yeah, these two cars are really close, and can't quite see who has the advantage right now, but they're definitely noticed that the clock's running out. So the car in the front definitely wants this race to end this lap, and the car behind wants an extra 10 minutes. It's always funny how the time scale changes depending on which car you are in these situations.
Looking up at the race leaders as more traffic spins out right on cue. I will say, Bill Clark handling that traffic even though it spins out on him. Well, Jack Collins, 15th already getting lapped there. That's how quick the leaders have been today. Already 14 cars left in the lead lap and shrinking.
Yeah, and I think as we see some of the spins and some of the situations, I think that's made the difference. The leaders have made the smallest kind of mistakes throughout the whole race, and that's the reason why they're kind of they've made it through half the field already so far.
Keeping an eye on Clark once again, but was about to emphasize too, his pace has picked up a little bit, 131.4s to be able to get this distance up. While Lezama has had faster hot laps, you can argue, the consistency's not been there. In fact, Lezama might be at risk of losing the second spot if he has any more mistakes, because Gozar is closing in fast as well, as you see on that pylon. Or was until the last lap.
Yeah, seems like kind of maybe something's kind of spread them back apart a little bit, but I mean that's something that you always balance. You're trying to push the speed that you go, and it's that risk versus reward of maybe you try to brake just a little bit later, but maybe you go off track or have to really sacrifice your corner speed because it was too much. So kind of that consistency and finding that balance for these conditions is really the key to today.
Look at some of the last of the drivers as they sort themselves in the final 90 seconds of the season. The rain's now at its highest point all day, by the way. It is monsoon conditions. Drivers like Alex so looking to try and hold on to close things out. Give him credit. 4 laps down, yes, because of some of the troubles and some of the damage. lot of strength to try and finish as the Pink Pig gets ready to take the white flag soon.
Yeah, this has been a really impressive race today by Clark. He's seems to not really have put a foot wrong. He's just been running his race. He's led when he could lead, and he ran second when it made sense to be second, and kind of as he's went through the whole race, it's put him in the lead here with a chance to go home with the win.
Race control command given over to the drivers. Final lap in session. Clark just a few corners away from securing victory to close out the season. While it was attrition that played a factor a bit in terms of his positioning for the title fight, Clark can at least smile here with how things have played out to try and finish. Others trying to get themselves sorted, like Luke Messi, for this final lap. This is around towards the 20s.
Yeah, I think you're going to see some people that are glad that this race is over, and others that want one more lap to try to get that extra position. So these races can be frustrating at times, but not for Bill Clark today.
Bill Clark, throughout the season, has been a top 5 contender all throughout. Today, Bill Clark able to survive anything the rain threw at him. So as Clark works his way through this final lap here, just have to keep it clean, have to keep it focused. He's still got a couple more corners to go.
Yeah, that's right. You can see how focused he is. He hasn't even cracked a smile yet, but I think we're going to see one any second now.
Bill Clark can now smile. Checker flag waves. Give it to Clark. He's your winner to close out the season here in the CrowdStrike Cup. But all that's while Gulzar takes the checkered. A top 3 run unofficially is enough to score ahead of Puckett. Puckett, the points leader coming in, falls back to 6 behind Pfeiffer. And all that's while drivers like Messi try and sort themselves together to close things up. What a finish to today as the rest of the drivers look to finish out the race, Kevin.
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty impressive race today, and we saw a lot of really good battles. We saw some slides, some spins, some contacts, and I think everybody out there had a lot of fun today.
And you can see the long face, though, when it comes to Puckett on track finishing top 5. We'll see how official totals look. But we'll say, as some of the drivers in AM yet to finish, including drivers like Peterson, looking to close, seems to be in position for that fight too. What a race though today, you can say at the very least, Kevin, as the final drivers finish it out. Peterson about to finish out the AM Championship. Another win for Peterson. We talked about consistency. How about a multi-time race winning season to add to consistency? The speed and pace there from the get-go. Peterson gets himself an AM title.
Yeah, that's kind of what you want. You want to have both speed and consistency.
What a run, to say the very least, today. What a race overall. First things first, want to get your thoughts, Kevin, on how this season closed out. A monsoon, why don't you, to close out the season. A little bit of a curveball for drivers, and most of the field handled it very well.
That's right. I mean, it was a huge challenge for everybody on the track today, and I think we saw some people coped with that better than others. And in the end, we saw some great battles and really close racing, and some little touches and little things that made it super exciting. So what a race today.
But drivers like Gulzar needed to live up to the occasion with how tight the margins were for the Pro Championship. Again, we touched upon that a lot, but that's the part of the storyline is it's the championship. Gulzar had just about near even pace by the end to the race leaders. But in a championship like this, consistency wins the title. He had the consistency all season.
Yeah, I think it was consistency and then patience. He didn't kind of force the issue at the beginning of the race. He waited to kind of get his position on track and then just made the race come to him. So I think that was the right strategy for him today, and it was resulted in a championship.
You could say the same for Peterson as well, though, because how about a near 2-second gap for the win in AM, but his competitor, we've seen in terms of Turton had a lot of struggles today. We touched upon how you would want the speed, obviously, but he had speed and consistency as well for that AM title.
Yeah, that's right, and really that's the best of both worlds. If you can have both, then you're always going to take that, and I think he used it to his advantage today, and yeah, really happy to see him go away with the championship.
Now, getting the driver of the day thoughts. Who is your pick for driver of the day and why?
I have to say it's Bill Clark. I mean, he won overall, but he just, it looked like he was under control the entire race, and it's one thing to do that in a dry race where everything's a lot more predictable, but when you take the weather added into it and all the traffic and everything that he had to react to throughout the race, I think he did a really great job, and I think that's what made the difference to make him come out on top today.
I almost lean towards Golzar, honestly, even though as the champion for the pro side unofficially here, still had to come from 2-point positions back to start, then had to find a way around Puckett, then had to find a way to pull away from Puckett, had to finish up all the parts of the process to make sure this was going to be the day I scored enough points.
Yeah, you're right, and I think if we analyzed everybody out there, I think there were a lot of really great competitors out there like that today. So definitely, Golzar did a great job, and I think it was a really methodical kind of finish to the race for him, and for sure he deserves a honorable mention in my vote as well. So definitely good job to him as well.
So, as we come to a close here from Brands Hatch, we'd like to once again thank you for tuning in throughout today's coverage. The CrowdStrike Cup Virtual Racing League. The 5 races seen us go to 4 different continents, a variety of different types of racetracks, and in the end, we finished in the midst of a rainstorm. Once again, for my co-announcer today and Kevin Bohem, for our producer and Mike Yao, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Once again, you've been watching CrowdStrike Cup action from Brands Hatch.